weird fucking guys. You're doing a manly thing, and you're a fucking dork.
I've got my lightsaber wearing my Pokemon hat today. Like, what the fuck is this shit?
Wow, you're a real Renaissance man, you know that?
Goddamn man-child.
What a fucking dork.
Yeah. But he's our dork.
This is not for children.
That's Genevieve.
She's right, though.
No, yeah, this one is not.
Not for kids.
This one is. Hey, John.
I hope so.
Welcome back.
What's up, dude?
Hey, we got a guest today.
Yeah.
Dude, you've been asking me for months.
Because I go back and I listen to the old episodes.
Yeah.
And he's on a lot of them, and I'm like, this guy's all right.
So let me preface this to the audience that I have a friend, and we used to do a political podcast.
Yep.
Because my friend Ben here is he's my favorite amateur historian.
Yeah, amateur's a good way to very amateur.
Well, the only reason I say amateur is because in the past, when I would call you my historian, you would go, no, I don't like know everything, and I'm like, I feel like you do. I feel like you kind of do, you know?
I know a lot of weird details about a lot of oddball stuff. It's never very specific. I'm terrible with dates.
Yeah.
I have you got to give me like a 10-year wiggle room.
Yeah, but you
dates.
somehow know the dates when people are dying. So, like, if I said, in 1916, which people were dying then? You're like,
Well, it's because most of my history knowledge is centered around war, right?
Yeah.
My father-in-law used to say human history is military history.
Right.
So, in 1916, there was a bunch of Europeans dying.
Yeah, well, they were a little mad at each other.
They were, yeah, and they'd worked up to it for quite a long time.
We'll get there. We're working on that too right now.
Oh boy.
Not quite Europe. It's more the whole fucking globe,
I was watching a video the other day about tipping points.
Yeah.
Like in everything, economics, life, there's a tipping point where stuff will just kind of start cascading and there's really no way to pull it back.
Yeah.
And
we're getting close.
Yeah, I worry about that.
So I read a book. John, I feel like you're getting pushed out.
No, go for it.
I read this book, which after the show,
I can't read.
He's so full of shit. He's just as dorky as the rest of us,
I don't believe it.
I can read.
I'm reading this book. I haven't finished it yet, but it basically is the exact thing that you're talking about. It's called How to Deal with the Changing New World Order, and it's written by an economist that goes back and does this assessment of each civilization or society throughout as far back as we can go.
Yeah.
And tries to realize, like, economically what occurred, how did it impact the people of that society, what social changes did you see, and then how did it eventually collapse. And he's really good about being pretty unbiased about certain, hot topics right now. But he does mention, like, in case you were wondering, it does appear that we're in this part of the cycle, Yeah. And it's funny because even he, in this book, says, you may not have ever thought about this, but at some point, the United States will not exist. It will be history.
I think we talked about this one time, and I was like, you think so? And you were like, fucking right, I think so.
Well, it's just a matter of time because every civilization eventually evolves into something else.
Yeah.
Italy was the Roman Empire, England or the Great Britain or whatever, United Kingdom was, like they all were something else.
Right.
And so it's inevitable that this is not going to last. It just humans can't fucking stay that organized.
Well, I honestly, and I know this might sound a little weird, but I think we're lucky to have lasted as long as we have. Like, this was called the Grand Experiment early. We've done really good.
Yeah.
We've done really good. We need to keep doing better.
Yeah.
We really do.
Like 200 some years that we,
Well, the comedy, and I don't want to go down a deep political rabbit hole. The real thing about mentioning all of this and how you and I do these dives in our personal conversations is because, Ben, you have a very unique hobby.
I do.
Interest that I think sometimes, I was telling John on the previous episode, I said, I think he's a little shy about discussing it, but I'm going to pull you out of your turtle shell, and I'm going to be like, dude, it's okay. And
you can talk about it.
Well, I think that, why don't you tell us what your thing is?
So usually when people ask me what my hobbies are, right, I give the man answer, like, yeah, I'm into guns, right?
Are you into guns?
I enjoy guns.
I've never fired a gun a day in my life.
Oh, really?
Never.
Well, so that's how me and Ben actually became pretty close, is we
yeah.
used to do this rugged camping, but it was also, the only way we could sell it to other Delco dipshits is that we were like,
There's
well,
guns.
You can bring your guns,
Yeah.
and that's, me and Ben were basically the range officers keeping these morons from looking down the barrel to figure out where the bullet came from. like,
we eventually we'll have to tell the story about the dragon fire round.
Dude.
That was a mess.
Dude,
that
was fucking
a mess.
So,
I've never fired a gun in my life. I've always just been like petrified of guns. Like,
I
grew up in Philadelphia, and it was like the first time, my first experience like knowing about guns was some kid threw some fucking snowballs at a car, and the guy drove around the block, came back, and shot the kid. The kid was like fucking,
I remember that.
Yeah, he was like 13. I'm not gonna say his name because I know the family.
Yeah.
But shot the kid. The kid died.
Yeah, man.
And that was like
I remember
first
hearing that
experience knowing about guns.
Honestly, that's not a. It's good to be scared of.
Oh,
they're scary.
Yeah. I don't like.
So
I'm not
that's
against guns. But
that's usually the advice that he or I gives to most people. I get severely concerned when I see new gun owners. Like in COVID, like we were discussing in our last episode, we never got around to discussing that part of it. But, dude, there was such a huge influx of gun ownership in this country, which is good in the sense of, like, if you're concerned about gun rights, but it's bad in the sense that none of these new owners are trained.
Yeah.
And I've had many conversations where I said to them, well, do you keep that thing, like, loaded? Like, one in the chamber? Or, like, what?
Yeah, how do you store that?
How are you storing this? Where is it stored at? Don't you have small children? Why do you not have, like, a quick little, like, finger-controlled lock? Like, they have these ones that use your fingerprints and other shit.
Yeah, there's also like little button ones. There's a lot of different companies are really good about making products that try and make it easily accessible if you need to get it.
Yeah.
But not accessible to little people that should not be messing with them.
Right.
But to continue
There's a lot of stuff out there.
But to continue the conversation, though, that's how me and Ben met, because I feel like we're still not getting to the meat and potatoes of this conversation, man. I want to hear about it. He's dodging.
So I give that answer because most people, my hobby is weird enough that people just don't get it. So you remember when you were a little kid, right? You remember those green plastic army men?
Yeah.
Or like G.I. Joes?
I love G.I. Joe.
Dude, those were my favorite toys.
G.I. Joe, a real American hero, is like such a huge part of my life, even today. Like,
really?
I fucking love
I got the DVDs
Joe.
for my kids. My son was blown away. Even my daughter was jazzed about it.
Dude,
right?
I could talk to you about G.I. Joe for the next 4 fucking days. We could do a whole podcast just about G.I. Joe.
No, but maybe we'll have to.
I love G.I. Joe.
So you remember, when I was a kid, right? I used to set them up, and I had like wooden blocks to play with when I was a kid. And I would set them. I'd make like his fortress, right? And I would set all the guys up on the ramparts, and I would start shooting at them with rubber bands.
Right.
And then eventually I found at some weird garage sale like a cannon that shot ping pong balls.
Oh, cool.
And so I upgraded to that until I lost all the ping pong balls. And so take that kind of thing that you used to do as a kid, right? Set up like giant battles with like 30 guys on this side and 50 guys on this side. And then if your dog eats some, those are the casualties.
This is something I do as an adult.
So
I still have my G.I. Joes.
There is an entire hobby that centers around playing big battles with toy soldiers.
Oh, kind of like how these guys get together and play like the role playing games that with the platforms and shit all set up.
Yeah. So imagine instead of Now there's fantasy versions and sci-fi versions and historical versions. There's a lot there.
When I go to like Showcase Comics and Media,
yes,
the whole place is like, I would say 3/4 of the place is that.
Yeah, so that's a hangout for me, man. I end
oh
up
yeah,
spending time
do you hang out there?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
So all the figures that you see there, that's
I'm a
that's
comic
my jam,
guy.
man.
I don't know anything about that, but I go in the back sometimes just to look. At the platforms and like the, what do you call that?
I call them boards. Yeah.
Whatever it is, the shit that people have made, it's like it'll be like the facade of like a fucking cathedral.
Yeah.
And it's like painted ever so delicately.
That's
and I'm
what
like,
I do.
You paint them?
Yeah.
Oh, it's fucking cool as shit, man.
It's awesome.
Oh,
it's
dude, you gotta we gotta get together and play, man.
Hell yeah!
Because I still have my 3 3/4 inch GI Joes.
Yeah.
I have about 90 of them.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like
it
would be fucking awesome.
It was
to
like
set them up.
2 or 3. So there's guys that do it with Lego.
Oh no shit.
Like, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's called Brick Wars.
So I'm kind of excited.
So do you just make the facades, or do you do the figures too?
So I do the figures. So there's a couple different things, right? So most of the figures are manufactured by somebody, right? Right. Because I'm not a sculptor, I don't know how to make guys, right?
I could do that. I could sculpt.
So man,
we should do that.
Do you know how to 3D model stuff? That's the way of the future.
I want to get I want to get a printer. I want to get the 3D printer.
Yeah.
But I can sculpt.
Nice. So there you make the figures, right? Somebody makes the figures. You go out, get them, put them together, because some of them are plastic kits, kind of like a model kit.
Mm-hmm.
You prime them usually with some kind of like spray primer, right?
Yeah.
And then you paint them up, and you can make. So stores like Showcase, they not supply, but they sort of make as much of the terrain as they can to kind of entice people to play, right? Because it's easy to paint an army of the figures relatively, but it's hard to paint and store like big
parts,
cathedrals, right?
Pieces, right?
Yeah, so they sort of provide this play space to people to get people in the door, get people playing, get people to buy more product. Like that's kind of the model. But I do also have setups for stuff. So like I got a whole like crappy like it's kind of sci-fi Cold War like
That's
that
cool.
real block architecture. I got a city like that in 15mm, which is
See how modest he is, though? Dude,
Right.
you know what I love about this guy, man? Is it's always this very humble, like, I got this crappy... Dude, let me tell you something. I don't think I've seen that particular setup, but I've seen some of the stuff that he's done.
It's pretty fucking cool, and it's like mind blowing when you see it. To describe it, it's like, oh man, that's kind of corny and nerdy and shit. But then you see it, you're like, oh fuck, this is the coolest shit I've ever seen in my life.
So I know, and me and Ben know another guy that paints these things. So this is the thing: there are some guys that are particularly very good at when you get a figurine. These little figurines, they're die cast and they're unpainted.
Right.
There's no detail to them. So somebody sits
It's hard
here,
to paint something that small too.
Dude, some of these guys sit with a fucking magnifying glass and they sit here with a very fine tipped brush and they meticulously paint these things. But then when you go and look at it, you're like, fuck me, man. The detail on this thing is incredible, you know?
And Showcase is like the only place that I know of off the top of my head that will sell you like all those paints.
Yeah, there's
shit like that.
alternate universes. It's more like
my son goes there.
Yeah,
my son plays like some card game or something.
Yeah, the owner's Mike Coyle. He's a really nice dude.
Yeah.
That was where I played for a long time.
Oh, okay.
But it's got more like the card store focus, so
Yeah.
The play space isn't really good for miniature stuff. There's still a group that kind of bounces around there sometimes, but I haven't seen those guys.
But
in a long
Showcase
time.
is like...
Showcase is set up for it.
Yeah,
it's definitely
that's
set
like
up
what
for
they're
it.
there for almost. It
And
feels like
I know a lot of guys. So there's a lot of guys. Showcase is kind of a touchstone. It's like a kind of a home base for that. But there's a group of guys that I'll play with. I haven't been able to do it in a long time, family concerns, stuff like that. But
raising kids.
They they play in a church basement.
Oh,
rent
wow.
a church basement out. My buddy Rich, he passed some time ago, but he helped set up that relationship. And it's a monthly thing, and I'm talking about a table this size, paved with tiny soldiers, like one end to the other, and a full, like trees and forests worth of trees and rivers, and
I'm less
epic.
I'm less about the landscape of it and more about characters. So like the thing that I'm nostalgic for is characters.
Yeah.
So like for a long time, I just had shelves where I would like recollect toy lines from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I would just have shelves of this shit, but I would never touch it. So it was like after a while, it was like I can't keep spending money on this.
Yeah.
Like it's just like it doesn't make any sense. There's nothing practical about it. So I kind of got out of that.
Yeah.
But for the longest time, it was like you could like obsess over it and like completing collections and things like that. So like I totally understand it.
Yeah.
But the other thing about it is like if you dig that, you dig it, man. Like and I think it's cool as shit. I mean, I wouldn't even think twice. Like sometimes when I walk into places like a showcase or whatever, I'm like, where are all these people at in the world? I never see these guys anywhere.
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
You know what I mean?
They are.
They're on fucking construction sites.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
But it's also like at Tom and Jerry's. Like if you walk in there on like a Friday night and they have like some hair metal band playing, every dude that looks like a hair metal fan is there.
Shows up.
And you're like, where the fuck do you live? Like I never see you anywhere but here. You know?
Well, I think the interesting thing. So when we started Renaissance Man Child, which was
every third Sunday,
it was every third Sunday. But you pitched the idea of let's interview people about special interests that they have, and the whole premise. Even when you listen to our intro, it's supposed to be our show is supposed to be about guys in their 30s or 40s or whatever.
It's like a blue collar show for guys that have like
or girls.
Yeah, anybody really.
But really it's about middle-aged people, to be totally woke and fucking unoffensive and not specifically white. What are we, white, cis, jerk off?
Man. I'm not even getting into that.
Yeah,
man.
let's do this. Let's have some fun. Anyway, you know me, man. I'm always going to talk shit. But it's really about just people in their middle age that are parents now or whatever, and they have this thing that they hold on to from their childhood that they still enjoy. And it's funny because, like, you correlate this to your childhood. I set up my G.I. Joes and I knocked them down with rubber bands. John is like, dude, I had fucking Ninja Turtles and G.I. Joes and all these things.
I wasn't a Ninja Turtle guy, but I get
Go
what
fuck
you're
yourself, John.
Yeah.
You know?
It was G.I. Joe.
Get it right, man. You
Yeah,
gotta get
man.
the nerdism
comic book
right.
characters, G.I. Joe, and pro wrestling.
But I'm trying to loop this all in because, like, in my garage, and I am so nostalgic for old, classic muscle car, even old parts. The valve covers off of a Chevy small block that are kind of rusty. I like looking at it. I'm like, I don't know. It's just like a rusty part that's like, I'm going to sit it on the shelf. I look up at it sometimes and I'm like, I'm never going to fucking use that.
Right.
I have the hubcaps off of old cars and I'm just like, I just like it. I think it's cool looking. And to me, it always comes back to the seeing this as a kid and being very familiar.
It's almost like you unlock like your happiest memory or some shit.
Yeah,
and then
I do.
expand
I
on
sincerely sit in my garage sometimes and just look around at stuff and I'm just like, this is my fucking happy place. I relax in here. Sometimes I'm not working on cars. Sometimes I'm literally sitting. I have this very comfortable chair that I literally found in an abandoned cabin on my buddy's property a few years ago. And I said, hey, Kev, how much you want for this shitty chair? Because I know you're about to knock this cabin down. And he was like, I don't know, $50, I guess. And I was like, fucking sold, man. Yeah. What's your Venmo? I'll send you some money. I want this fucking chair. And I sit in it every fucking day. Mm-hmm. And it's all about like this. Like to me, I remember going to my dad's shop and my dad had like just car parts and shit laying around and dirt bike parts. And now I'm doing the same thing. And my kids come over and they're like, oh, what's this? And I'm showing them stuff. And it's this thing. And I know that you do this with your kids. And I'm sure
your kids into this too?
Yeah. So my son is almost like a carbon copy of me, but better at math.
Yeah. See, none of my kids are like me.
Really?
None of them. My daughter is a lot like me.
But that counts.
Yeah, it does. My daughter is the one who like will listen to music, try to play music, say like irreverent jokes and things like that, and she gets into like the art and all that thing. My other two sons
that's not true, man, because you and I have talked, and you've told me that, listen,
there are
Victor likes
aspects
the
of them.
Italian side of you, the mob movies. And, and
there's aspects of it. But
and
overall,
John likes other parts.
Me and John bonded over pro wrestling and things like that. And
John
is very much like, John is very much like this neurotic side of me.
Yeah.
Like he's like very neurotic in ways
Sure.
that I am. Victor is very much like the man side of me.
Yep.
And then my daughter is like the creative side of me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm saying, like, he's saying, like, his son is like this little carbon copy of him. I don't have that.
Yeah, but he's also got a daughter that I'm sure he can relate to in a certain way.
Yeah, that's the thing is both my kids are very emotional, right? I'm a pretty emotional dude, and
which is so, dude. Listen to me, man. Ben is like my spiritual advisor. He doesn't know it, but he sincerely is. And dude, he is. Like, to be perfectly honest with you, I hold Ben in such a fucking high regard.
You've got terrible judgment.
He's so full of shit. You know what's funny is I get offended because he is very anti-technology.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I kind of am too.
But dude, I'm addicted to it, and I am such a modern piece of shit that I'm like, dude, how come he's not answering my text messages? And I know the way Ben is. Dude, when we go camping, Ben brings a fucking army roll from like World War II, and I'm like, dude, this is outdated technology. You're gonna fucking freeze to death.
He wants the real experience.
Dude, he wants the real experience.
It's cold.
It's cold. But it's awesome because me and him have also done camping trips where everybody else bailed, and me and him were like, fuck it, let's go anyway.
Right.
And, dude, we stood on the side of a mountain, freezing our nuts off.
It was like 20 degrees or snow on the ground.
Hard fucking wind blowing through, and we couldn't shelter the fire, so the fire almost was going to blow the fuck out a few times, and it was just, like, brutal.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, man, you want to, like, hit that tin can with a fucking slingshot? And I was like, yeah, fuck it, why not? You know, and, like...
Man, we shot at that thing for like an hour. I don't know if we hit it twice because it was blowing around. Like, dude, it was a good 6 foot swing.
Dude,
it was fun.
But it's funny to me because, you know, like there's a part of me that sometimes is like a modern, self-centered dickhead, and I'm like, man, what the fuck, dude? How come Ben doesn't answer my text messages? And I know why. I know the answer. He's dealing with his life. And he doesn't like fucking phones. He really hates social media.
Yeah, I don't.
That's where I'm at with it right now too. I can't stand it either.
But this is the thing, and this is why when he mentioned that he's emotional, which he really tries to shelter well, because like when Jay was on the show and we discussed how in this particular area it's very hostile, and I think that you can't really display that openly, you know. This is the thing. Yesterday or 2 days ago, I saw Ben at the freaking park, and our kids are sledding, and the dude walks up and he, like, embraces me and gives me, like, a big hug, and I'm like, dude, a part of my soul was like, I fucking miss this guy, dude. Like, and I hugged him back. I was like, shit, dude, get a little love in here, man.
Yeah. I'm a bit of a hermit, right? So
am I.
So growing up, right, I moved a lot as a kid. Not a military family or anything. My dad worked for DuPont, and he just ended up bouncing around. So I never, like, Chris, you've been here since you were a tadpole, right?
That's it.
You know literally everyone in Delaware County. You grew up with all of them.
Pretty much.
I didn't have that at all. So, and I didn't even have a brother or sister until I was 6 years old. So my first 6 years of my life, we bounced around at least 2, 3, maybe 3 different places.
Okay.
No friends. Right?
Yeah.
Because you didn't have time to form a relationship with anybody.
Sure.
And or if you did, you know, you kind of knew in your heart of hearts that 6-8 months from now you were going somewhere else. So I really exist in my own little bubble.
Yeah.
And I realize that that's not really a great way to foster friends or friendships. So I do a bad job at that, and I realize this. But it's so...
It's okay. I still love you, man.
Thank you. See, that's why you're a good dude, because you've got that patience for me being basically like this mountain man, but without the mountain. You know, I'll just hide there and like whittle my little crap and paint my little figures and exist in my own little bubble.
So on my toolbox, I still have the wooden fork,
the
wooden sporky. So with that time when we were camping alone, I totally did not bring. I usually have camping like silverware and shit to eat with, and we were like, "Fuck."
Yeah, we both forgot.
We don't got nothing, man. There's
so
like we're gonna be like. So he was like, "Oh, I'll whittle a
spork,"
and I'm watching him like, what an asshole. Is he really going to sit here and try and do this? And it fucking worked. And I was like,
that's resourcefulness.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of camping, right?
But it's even funnier because I watch shows like Naked and Afraid and Alone, which I love these shows. And I'm like, fucking Ben.
I wonder if these people can make a sport.
Fucking Ben, dude. Ben would
they
outlive.
could whittle it in like half the time.
He's so full of shit, dude. He could be a contestant on that show, and he would be there for like fucking 3 years, and they would be like, dude, the show ended like 2.5 years ago. Like,
no, those people have grit. Like, I watched one of those Alone shows where the guy was stabbing a muskox with a knife.
That guy's badass.
Oh,
that guy.
Yeah, I want to be him when I grow up. Except without the crazy.
I think you are, dude. I don't think you recognize yourself, man. I think you could do it, dude.
No, that guy's awesome.
I'll tell you what.
I never watched them.
They did a season of that show where they let people have a partner. There was, I think the third season, they let father and son or best friends or your brother. And I swear to God, I was like, dude, if they do another one of them, I'm telling Ben, I will fucking drag you there with me. With Ben's smarts and Ben will be like, don't eat them berries, Chris. You're a fucking idiot. Don't eat them. I'm telling you right now.
That's how Shitcastle is. Shitcastle can differentiate every fucking plant that you can eat.
But this is the thing. I'm the caveman, so Ben will be like, "Dude, I don't think you should run up there and tackle that fucking that boar." And I'll be like, I think I can get him. I think I can do it. And I'll just go full fucking idiot and just like run after this thing with a stick and just.
Thing is you would get it.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, nah, I think I'll eat this berry over here instead.
Now, man, we're gonna have berries and fucking pork for dinner. You know.
So
I'll be a little scarred up, but.
Well, I'll do first aid on you.
So, like the passion you have for this hobby, like it comes from. Do you think it like what did you do as a kid that like really like correlates to that? Like, were you always into like customizing things like that, or?
So the arts side,
like, did you ever like take your GI Joes apart and like put the arms on the other guys and shit?
Oh no, man,
we did that.
I had like 5 GI Joes.
Oh really? Right?
So
I was a fucking maniac.
My mom and dad growing up. I don't know how to get into this. This is going to be kind of weird.
Let's do. Oh, I like weird.
When I was born,
take your shirt off. No.
When I was born, my mom swore that there was going to be no instruments of violence in the house.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So she was like definitely Mr. Rogers, Sesame Street, full-on pacifist, right? She's still very much this way, but I think she's kind of given up on me. So when I was about 3, every single thing I picked up was a weapon.
Oh, okay.
Every stick, every rock, everything was a gun, a knife, a sword, a bow and arrow, and it blew her mind. She didn't know what to do.
Right.
So as I grew up, things kind of loosened, but and we weren't poor by any stretch, right? But my dad has been very tight with the money. Yeah. 'Cause he was, single working parent, he had his wife, stay-at-home wife, and so my dad has always been real tight-fisted with money. So we lived like we weren't well off.
Sure.
All the way up.
You just had what you needed.
Yeah, that's it. We didn't really. So if I asked for a book, I would get any book I asked for.
Right.
But if I asked for toys or other things like that, especially if it was associated with violence,
yeah,
it was we're not going to get that today.
Oh, no shit.
Right. So so a lot of like Legos, I could ask for Legos and I would be pretty much like, okay, we'll get you this small one.
Yeah.
Man, I hoarded enough of those bricks to make an actual like 45 Colt one time.
Wow.
Well, to me, it was a 45 Colt. It was a bunch of red bricks
right. It's probably the most
kind
crude-looking thing in the world.
Yeah,
you're right.
But that's kind of how I was wired. It's just been something I've been fascinated with. And as I, went through school and I could get into the library, you can find in a school library books on history, books on war, and that's what I would immediately gravitate towards that, and I'd bring it home. And so this kind of, I always had the instinct to gravitate towards that kind of stuff, but actually getting it done and like having those things, like I didn't have any means to get it
my
myself.
dad was in the Navy.
Oh, cool.
So like in like 1985 when G.I. Joe was huge.
Oh yeah,
you
got like 16 shipwrecks, didn't you?
Shipwreck was my first G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
So like as soon as like he realized, oh, there's a military application to this, and it's geared towards children, he like expounded on it. So
Awesome.
like my first G.I. Joe was Shipwreck,
Yeah.
because he was a sailor.
Heck yeah.
And then of course I had like the planes, like the Sky Striker and stuff like that. So
cool.
like I had that stuff.
Yeah.
And that was the stuff he gravitated towards. If it looked too fantastic, like or like fantasy driven,
Yeah, like with the weird kind of
Yeah.
later era stuff.
right? He
where
was
it
kind of like, you don't really
neon
want that.
and
You
boom
want
boxes.
you want this tank, or you want this like RV or whatever. You know, like
Yeah,
those
yeah.
were the things that I had. But I had a lot of the little dudes. Like I
Yeah.
had tons of the dudes, and because I would draw them, and my dad was real big on expounding on the artwork too.
Yeah, yeah.
Like my dad was a tile setter who wanted to be an artist. So, it was
that's
like,
how he expressed himself in his work.
he didn't want to
doing
be a
that.
tile setter.
Yeah.
He just was by trade, because I think he
Yeah.
told his father when he was a kid, he was like, I want to go to art school. He was like, what are you going to do, draw flies? You know, like, and then he taught him how to be a tile setter.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
what he did his entire life until he couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And, but he was a great tile setter. He was great at it. But like, but when it came to this kind of stuff, like drawing and things like that, if your interest was like, if it piqued your interest in doing those things, he would expound on it.
Yeah, yeah.
So like when it came to stuff like G.I. Joe and characters and shit like that, he was like,
he fed that for you.
he
to
was
keep you
cool
going
with it.
on
Yeah, he was like, yeah, as long as you're gonna put it on paper, as long as you're gonna learn something about it, he would do it. You know.
That's awesome.
But yeah. So like, but like I'm so nostalgic for that kind of stuff now. So that's why I was like wondering, like, is there something from your childhood? Like, is it the craftsmanship of it now that you care more about? I feel like for me, like drawing.
Yeah.
Like I loved comics as a kid, but as an adult, I don't give a shit about comics. I care about the craft of creating comics. I care about the drawing, and the inking and stuff like that.
So for me, the artistic aspect, I always felt like I was kind of, I kind of missed out on that part of my family's history.
Right.
My grandfather was an art professor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, on my mom's side, and never particularly like successful in the art world. Like he didn't paint a bunch of stuff and then make $1 million, right?
Yeah,
and
nobody
he
does.
was from a pretty well-off family, and he was a huge disappointment to his parents.
Oh, wow.
Because that's the art route he chose,
Yeah.
right? And my grandmother ended up leaving him for a law professor, who was a great man, by the way. He's an awesome dude. But and that's so. So he was always kind of, because he chose that art path, sort of behind the eight ball. But I always felt like I never measured up to that part of my family legacy, you know. I can't draw to save my life. It might be because I never, stuck to it and learned.
Yeah, I think if you pursued the interest long enough, you'd get good.
But I
at
was
it.
pretty good at 3D art, right? During, at high school, I sculpted some stuff, and I wasn't bad at it.
Yeah.
But I really kind of found an expression of whatever artistic talent I do have in that painting.
Mm-hmm.
And now that painting is really kind of like my Zen space,
Like
right?
it's real meditative.
Yeah, I'll
Right.
put on music. I'll put on very infrequently like a show in the background or
Yeah.
something, and I'll just go away. Right?
I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I do the
And-
same thing.
And that for me is so I produce a product that I can then use for something else that's entertaining, right? So that's
Right.
great. But I also get this kind of mentally quiet time, sort of like welding, right? Welding, I love being a welder
I
because
do-
I could go away. Like,
Yeah.
I could just do my job. My hands are almost working on what they need to work on by themselves, and I can mentally sort of drift.
Yeah.
And I don't really have that in my job right now.
Yeah.
So being able to do that as a hobby, like guaranteed be able to do that is awesome, and
Yeah.
that's kind of why I do it.
I think a lot of people don't have that kind of outlet to like settle their brain enough in that
Absolutely.
aspect.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
I mean, like you were talking about technology, like everything is flashing and beeping at us.
And I think that's like
takes
the
our whole
biggest
attention.
problem with these kids is like they don't know how to just chill the fuck out and do something by themselves.
When my daughter
Like,
gets wound, I tell her to go draw.
yeah, go draw a picture.
Yeah.
That's
And
a good
lost,
idea.
Get
I like
lost.
that.
That's like the same thing with my kid. My daughter, she likes to draw, and I'm glad because otherwise it's like the phone, the laptop, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, they get glued to it.
just pick it up and like work on a technique. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like draw something, shade something, whatever.
Yeah.
I do
You know?
think it's definitely robbing young people of their
Their intellect.
inclination to
Right.
create things. So, like, I think it's fascinating that you're doing this. Young people, if they listen to this episode, and they're going to be like, "What the fuck is he doing? He's taking these little tiny dolls And the truth is you're
I hate
doing
that word, dolls.
Well, you're
my brother fucking says that shit to me. I want to
about
punch
the
him in
GI
his fucking
Joes.
face.
Oh, I hear
yeah,
you.
well,
I hear you on
but
that.
that's
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
I get what you're saying.
personify
I'm just-
what younger people.
Yeah.
Though they're so quick to log on to their Xbox and fucking play some role-playing game or whatever, which is literally the same thing you're doing, only you physically have objects in front of you. Like, don't tell me that you play World of Warcraft and you think that Ben's a fucking dork because he paints figurines and he does it on a table. It's the same fucking thing.
It's actually cooler.
Well,
in my opinion, it's a lot fucking cooler.
I think it's a lot cooler, honestly, because I think the amount of art and attention and the reason behind why he does it, and I think that there's something being lost in all of this technology. Dude, I admit, look, like I said from day one, I know why Ben doesn't answer me. I know that my modern thinking is fucked up. Why isn't Ben answering me? Dude, if this was the 1990s and I called Ben's house and he didn't answer, I would be like, oh, he must be out playing, you know?
Yeah.
And it would be normal in the 1980s. Or imagine in the 1900s before fucking everybody had a telephone, it would simply be, I'm going to walk down to Ben's house. And I've jokingly said, Ben, I'm just going to walk, because he literally lives right down the street.
I'm going to knock up.
And I would literally say, I'm just going to walk down, and it's so crazy because the way our society is nowadays, I won't do that. I won't just walk down and knock on his fucking door because in my mind, that would be so weird. Why would I do that?
Yeah. That's how
but
we
that used to be
things.
so fucking normal.
I'm going to knock up for so-and-so.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
So one of the aspects of the games that I play, right, is you are creating an event with another person.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So when you and I, John, let's say you and I, we're going to go play a game, right? If you have your stuff, right, of the same game,
right,
or the same time period, if we're doing like a historical battle, you bring your stuff, I bring my stuff, we get a table, we set it up together, we say, oh, wouldn't it be cool if there was a village here and a bridge here that we had to fight over? We're building this story,
right,
you and I. And then we have to, just like when we were kids, play a game in a way that's entertaining for both of us. There's going to be a winner. There's going to be a loser, right? But it has to be a good experience so that you'll come back and say, hey, I want to do that again. I got my butt kicked, but wasn't it cool when my guy was the last one on the bridge and he stood strong for like 3 turns? So that kind of social experience, and nerds are like way out there on the social spectrum. Like they're bad at being near other people, so you got to navigate that too. Yeah. But for the most part,
it's like there's a real fucking thing like as far as like I know I'm a nerd, but I know I'm normal enough that I'm not nerdy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, so that's the kind of person that I enjoy playing games with. The guys that are really awkward, you have to manage them.
Yeah.
And that's not as fun as sitting down with an adult,
right?
And saying, "Hey, let's have a good time together."
Right.
And let's build this story. Let's play this game. Yeah. Let's tell this story to our buddies after.
Like it's hard to deal with somebody that's their whole life. Is that? I mean, every waking moment of your day is based on
their self-worth gets wrapped up in what happens on that table.
I want to know that like the guy that I'm hanging out with, that I'm talking to about this like particular interest, I want to know that he has to get up and he has like some responsibilities to deal with.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like, but you know what though, when you look at it from the opposite end of the spectrum, I'm a guy that doesn't do these. Like I don't do Ben's games.
I don't do what he does either. But there's a correlation between.
Yeah,
the
but
two.
what I'm saying is I think the purpose of this show and like the thought behind it is that like I have kids and my kid has Matchbox cars right over there. I bought them for him because I like cars and I was like I want to introduce my child to something that I like and I want to have some influence over them. But when my son comes up to me and says, "Hey, will you play with me?" I've been an adult so long that I forgot how to use my imagination.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
the truth,
that's not fun.
So
either.
I think that a large part, like you guys are already immersed into this hobby or activity that you do, but imagine a person on the outside that would call you a nerd for doing this is a guy like me that doesn't know how to be a child no more, and it's fucking sad. It's sad that my son says, "Can you play cars with me?" And I'm awkward about it because I'm like,
I'm a man. I can't play.
I don't know what I don't know what you mean. Like,
I have the same problem with my kids because that's so imagination. Right?
Yeah.
With the stuff that I do, there's a rule book, there's a structure.
Yeah.
Right. And so without that structure, like my daughter comes up here, play ponies with me.
Yeah.
I don't know how to play ponies, man.
Yeah.
Unless there's a rule book that teaches me how to play ponies, like my adult brain says, and there's a hard stop.
Yeah.
I have a hard time mixing things.
Yeah.
Like I have like I don't want to say he was kind of like a pseudo grandson.
Yeah.
In our house, but like he doesn't live with us now, but he lived with us for a long time. And when he would want to play, he could play with everything at once.
Yep.
I can't do that.
And I used to do that as a kid.
I can't do that.
Dude, my G.I. Joes, fuck the Barbies.
Yeah, like
they would steal the Barbie Corvette and fucking race around town.
Yeah, he
would
like
like Toy Story. Dude, Toy Story the movie was so
that's
relevant.
kind of how he played.
Dude, I was that guy.
Yeah.
I made my own toys and had
he would
like
just
weird
say, "Can
little...
we play dudes?" That's what he would call it, dudes.
Oh, that's great.
Because he would grab like Hawk, Batman, like a Hiss tank from G.I. Joe or whatever, play with it all at one time.
He's like ultimate crossover guy,
yeah,
right?
And my brain, in my head, I can't do that.
You're like, no, Hawk,
I play with one
universe.
thing or I play with that thing. You know,
Well,
like when
and
I was
no, man, he's DC. You can't do
exactly.
that.
I didn't mix DC with Marvel.
But
nothing.
that's the part that I really I'm really kind of sad that I'm having a hard time tapping back into that, you know? Well, so like look, right behind you, Ben, that is a table full of my drawings from when I was in high school. There's stuff in there that I drew back in high school. And back then I used to be able to just hit the switch.
I have a hard time hitting the
dive
switch too.
into my art.
Yeah.
And is it so like listening to you guys both say that you can find this zen. The only time I do it now is, like you said, is when I'm welding or I'm creating something, and it's such in small doses that it's very controlled.
But don't you feel like working on the cars is kind of the same thing?
Yeah, that doesn't do it for
The
you.
car is different because it's a puzzle, and a puzzle to me is more cerebral. It's not a matter of it's not releasing stress. It's a kind of sometimes a stressful thing because you're trying to figure out why is this not working. So it's more mental. It's a little more mental anguish. But to me, when I used to create art, that was this peace, this inner peace, like this moment of like I don't have to think about nothing.
It is hard to do it,
you know,
for me
but
too.
creating the details of this image, you know, and I don't know how to do that no more.
I got to get in the
welding
right
was
headspace
one
for it.
good thing. I used to listen to a lot of audiobooks while I would weld, and that's actually how you and I met. Honestly, is one of our mutual coworkers, Yak.
Yeah.
Was like, oh, you listen to books? You're a fucking weirdo. Like, that guy Ben over there listens to books too. You should talk to him. And I literally was like, well, what kind of books does he listen to? And I walked over and was like, hey, man, what are you listening to? And he's like, oh, well, I'm, listening to this book right now. And I was, well, I'm listening to Stephen King, the Dark Tower series. And like, and that's, dude, I remember sitting.
I've never listened to audiobooks. I listen to podcasts a lot. I don't listen to a lot of
audiobooks are great.
I listen to hundreds of them.
Do you?
Throughout the year. Yeah. A lot.
Because you can absorb what's going on while you're doing something else, like driving specifically.
Because I do so much driving now, I still continue to listen to a lot of audiobooks. And sometimes you get bored. But for me, it's about, because I'm a modern person and I constantly have to have a variety, I listen to multiple books at a time. If I get tired of one, I put it down or turn on a different one. Nonfiction, fiction, whatever, podcast, comedians. Like that's the problem with technology. It's the double-edged sword of like, there is so much information and entertainment available that sometimes you're like, it's like the porn paradox, people watch porn and they're numb to it.
Yeah.
You want to go home and you want your wife to be a fucking porn star now, but dude, let's be realistic. It's not fucking possible. And more importantly, right now she needs to cook food for your fucking kids. So like, this is not the moment, like, well, what do you mean? I just saw fucking porn, you 10 seconds. Fuck this. I'm all frustrated now, and it's like, dude,
What do you
mean?
the internet is creating this impatience in us.
Yeah, everybody wants instant gratification.
Yeah.
It's like just instant.
You know?
Whereas like, I do the same thing with drawing. Like I can't like focus for long periods of time sometimes unless I've done this, and this, and now I can relax.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it was I got to exercise in the morning. I have to like do something physical, and then later on in the day I will feel content enough that I can like relax now and draw something.
You know what's sad to me? I keep saying sad because there's a lot of sadness in my life.
You
apparently.
are sad man.
But another thing that I hesitate on creating artwork, but this is how like the modern fucked up thinking is we're doing the podcast. I do social media stuff for the cars and stuff. And I see some people drawing on TikTok. They'll literally set up a camera and they draw, and people watch them draw. And I was like, I could do that. And I instantly thought, you cunt. Like, you're going to exploit yourself. Like, oh, now you can start drawing again just because you know people will watch you. Like,
having an Instagram page for my artwork was a big motivation to keep drawing now.
But, dude, I hated myself for even thinking that.
It's because Chris is thirsty. He's a thirsty hoe.
I know. Yeah. I know, man. I feel like that. I do, man.
Well, fuck it. I mean, if it makes you draw, draw.
Yeah, but sometimes I get annoyed with myself. Even the car stuff. Yeah. So, like, I stopped for quite a few months. I just stopped making content. And it's so weird because, you know, I went back the other day, like literally a month ago, and started making a couple new little videos. And you don't realize the people are paying attention. Like some dude that I've never met in real life was like, oh, man, welcome back. I haven't seen you in a while. And I'm just like, you're fucking me up, dude. Because, like, I didn't think anybody gave a shit, you know? Like,
right.
Now I think, fuck, you are tuned in. There are people listening and do care, you know? And, you know, I don't know what to think now. All right, let's tell some dirty jokes again, you know? And let's say some nasty shit, you know?
Well, I think, so something that... I'll watch YouTube videos about my hobby, right?
Right.
And there were these guys in, I think it was Ohio. I didn't stalk them hard enough to actually find out where they were at. But they were really cool dudes, right? They had really good on-screen energy, you know, they were really excited about the hobby and what they were doing, and they told some really great stories, really entertaining to watch them. But they eventually kind of stopped doing it. Yeah, and I think for them it was a very conscious thing. I don't know why. I wish I did, honestly, because I felt like I know these guys, right?
Yeah.
You know, I've watched them play. It was almost voyeuristic in a way, and kind of creepy.
I wonder what that guy's dick looks like.
I might have wondered that at some point. But no. So it was really like you get to know them, right? You feel like you get to like a sense of it.
So it's so funny because right before this episode, we recorded the previous episode, and John and I are discussing my impulse to say offensive shit randomly at certain moments. And he's right. I can't fucking stop.
You got
I can't.
it. Yeah.
I'm like, you gotta just say something so fucking stupid. What is wrong with you, man?
No, but that's why he's fun to be around, because he'll say stuff and you're like, wow.
Look at John's laughing because he knows it's true.
Really
he's like, I'm just trying to be serious. You know, Chris is fun. Yeah.
What about that dick?
Yeah.
Wonder what their dicks look like.
That's like porn.
Yeah.
All right. How many episodes have broken down into porn conversations?
Oh boy.
Oh my god.
I bet.
It was like every third episode was porn.
Every third Sunday.
Yeah, dude, man. I thought this was like we were going to talk about special interest.
We were like, oh man, fucking Big Daddy's barbecue is so good. I want to smear that shit on my junk and jerk off. Like, we talked about food. We used to talk about food a lot. No. What, smearing barbecue sauce on?
I have a real hang up with food and
barbecue.
Sex.
Oh yeah, I think it's
food
gross.
And sex.
Oh, I can't.
It's
do
weird.
It. There's a hard line there.
Yep.
Hard line.
All right, listen.
No whipped cream.
Yeah,
nothing.
that shit is not tantalizing at all. That's fucking gross.
All right. I'm gonna be the guy. I will be good today. We're not going to talk about sex or porn or anything. This is a great episode.
I mean, let's get back to the miniatures.
But miniatures don't fuck. They don't fuck. Don't pretend like they fuck. Chris, shut the fuck up right now. We're talking about miniatures.
Yeah. We're talking about little toy soldiers. We're not talking about anything sexual.
Making porn out of
I think
them.
what I'm interested in more than anything is like the creative side of it, like the painting. When
yeah.
you talk about the meticulous painting, I'm just like, my mind gets blown by that stuff.
So there are some people that are basically professional painters for this stuff. And if you want to see it, I can link you some stuff for YouTube. These guys are artists, like fine art level artists,
right?
And some of the freehand work they do, I've seen pictures of guys that basically do Sistine Chapel level stuff on a 2x2 area.
Yeah, it's crazy to me,
and it's insane.
The detail is like, what the
I'm
fuck?
not that guy. I can't do that. I have a lot of cheats and workarounds.
But even still, even the idea of like a figurine that's like 3 to 4 inches tall, right?
Let's just these guys are mostly like
even smaller,
yeah.
Right? But like, I don't know if there's like a fucking like a cuff on a guy's coat,
yeah,
and it's like, oh, I got to make that gold or some shit, and it's so tiny. And you're not running into the rest of the sleeve and stuff.
Yeah,
it's like that shit blows my mind.
Well, so that's the
control, really.
so to correlate this to the world of cars, which often people don't recognize the art behind pinstriping on a car.
Oh, pinstriping's fucking awesome.
And it's the same premise of what, like Ben, you're saying that it's not that artistic or whatever, but the truth is people that don't follow the car community and they walk past a pinstriped car and they're like, oh look, that's pretty.
They take it for granted. You don't know how steady your hand has to be.
Fucking delicate that guy's like control must be. Like to roll those and make real swoopy. So like in the
and not only that, to get them symmetrical.
Dude, some of these guys are so fucking good. It is mind-blowing. Like in lowrider Mexican culture with old lowrider cars, some of the paint jobs these guys do in these cars. Listen, I would love to own one just because of the aesthetics of like how they create these things, the layering of the paint and the fading of certain areas, and then the pinstriping on top of it is
the pinstriping drives me fucking nuts.
Immaculate.
I think the difference
and
is,
you underestimate yourself constantly because what John's trying to tell you is, dude, to paint this little tiny fucking line on this thing,
or like the
is
eyes
hard.
on a figurine.
Yeah,
like, that's crazy to me.
I've throttled back with eyes. I used to do eyes on everything.
Yeah,
and I've throttled back with eyes, and I get it. So from the outside perspective, right? We watch a master pinstripe an automobile. Right?
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
it's like magic. It's literally magic. Like no other person can do what this guy's doing.
It's mind
when they just you can see it. They just the one hand's going and the other hand's going. You're like, how's he managing this?
Yeah.
Beautiful, incredible.
Right. It's the symmetry to drive me fucking
there are
nuts.
people out there that are that skilled doing the hobby that I do.
Right.
But I'm not that guy, so I'm comparing myself to the
those
masters.
guys. Yeah.
And what I really should be thinking, I was like, say I don't know anything about. Like I'm the idiot looking at
you're an expert
somebody
to somebody.
Pinstriper. Like, wow,
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not.
Well, there's always going to be
well.
somebody better. So I enjoy comedy. I look at other comedians and I'm like, fuck me, man. I know guys in this area that I've been begging them to come on the show because I know that they're funnier than me by a long shot. Like, I know that I'm not some fucking incredible comedian that everybody should suck my dick on how funny I am. I know that I'm mediocre at
He's going
best.
sexual again.
Yeah. See? That's what I do, man.
I'm never going to blowjob for telling a joke.
But I think that it's important because if it's really about the passion. Look, I'm actually being good right now. I'm being good.
We should match that energy, right?
Fuck you guys, man. But I swear to God, man, I think it's so important. I mean, it's great that you're humble enough to go, hey, look, man, I know I'm not as good as them guys.
But at the same time, everybody's their worst critic.
But I think it's also the fact
everybody
that
is their worst critic.
Dude, at the end of the day, so you're creating these things that other people were going to look at and they're going to go, holy shit,
that's incredible.
I can't fucking believe that he makes these things. And it's funny because this all started, me and John know each other from creating art as kids. I would look at his artwork and I would go, what the fuck? He can draw women so well.
Yeah.
And this isn't a sexual thing. It's in real life. They say that typically men draw men better and women draw women better because you
understand the anatomy. Yeah, it makes
but
sense.
I remember watching John, and I was like, dude, he can draw like so fucking good, and he understands like the muscle control and like the way things twist and turn and the way the arm would lay like this and how it looked, and I couldn't do it. I was just like, I don't know how the fuck he does that, man. You know?
Yeah.
But then apparently he's looking at my artwork and he's like, wow, look what he can fucking do. I can't believe he can do that.
It's like how I am with like a pinstriping guy.
Yeah.
You know, like the pinstriping guy blows my mind. But like the pinstriping guy might look at like one of my drawings and be like, man, look at the detail on that face or something. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't give a shit because it's like second nature to me.
Right.
So I think what I do sucks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like what you're saying with, you know, you're probably fucking phenomenal at this like painting thing.
I've been doing it long enough. I better be good at it, right?
Like, dude, I follow guys that like will customize like action figures and like the way that they'll paint like the eyes and shit like that. I'm just like, fuck, man, because I can't hold a brush and do that.
Be that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you give me a flat piece of paper, I could do it, but I can't put it on. You know, I could sculpt something into the shape it needs to be. And I can go back and edit whatever I'm sculpting until it looks right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could do it. Do it.
So I think sculpting is easier than drawings in some respects because of that.
Yeah.
Because you can go back and change things that aren't permanent.
Yeah.
But like when it comes to like putting paint on something, paint just seems so permanent to me.
Yeah.
You know, even though you can go over and paint over it or whatever, but like
I used to paint a little bit.
Yeah.
You paint, you know, there was a guy, so I briefly worked for a company that did this kind of stuff. They did this kind of stuff. It was in Clifton. It was in a little industrial park in Clifton. And they had a in-house, well, I guess it was sometimes in-house sculptor that did stuff. And they actually work in an epoxy, like a 2-part mixable epoxy putty.
Right.
So after a certain point, yeah, you could do subtractive stuff and like cut it away. But they're more like an additive technique. So they would sculpt part of it in epoxy putty. That shit would dry hard as a rock. And then they'd be layering things on top of it, like details. And watching this guy do it, I'm like, I can sculpt a little bit, but this guy's like...
Yeah.
And he was, for that industry, good, but not amazing. Like, he was really talented. But he's
not like the greatest thing.
Yeah, he's
there,
not.
right?
No, but
to you, he's the shit.
To me, I'm looking at his stuff and I'm going like, I can't wait for them to cast this in lead so I can paint it because it's awesome.
Yeah,
you know, it was this. The one I watched him do had this big banner, right? And so the figure had tons of like these flowing robes and armor and all this stuff, and they were holding this banner, and the banner was like immense. It had all this detail sculpted into it, and it was flowing and waving, and like, that's a perfect canvas to do some amazing shading to make this like really pop. But there's no way I could sculpt that, you know. But you're right. Everybody has this kind of niche, the stuff, the talent, that skill that they have, and we look at everybody else and we judge ourselves like, oh man, I'm an idiot, I'm not that good. Yeah. But you look at everybody else, you're like, oh wow, this guy's amazing.
But then there's people that can't do shit. They can't do nothing.
Yeah.
And they're like,
there are.
And there's a lot of people that will look at like something that I do or something that Chris does or something that you do and be like, I can't even wrap my brain around what you just did.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's wild.
And I think it's there's people that say like, oh, everybody can draw. Yeah, to a point.
I believe that. I'm one of those people.
Really?
I believe in pursued interest.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I think you
that
can
there's
develop.
a certain...
I think you can develop a talent, but I
Right.
do think that there are some people that literally lack, like the hand-eye coordination, or I don't know, man. I don't think.
I think some people are more akin to doing certain things.
Yeah.
But I think if you want to do, like, when I started drawing, I drew like shit.
Yeah.
You know, and it just took somebody saying that's really good, even though it sucked, to keep me at it.
Yeah.
Because my kids can draw. Like, my son Victor can draw.
Yeah.
He can pick something up and draw it, but because it doesn't look like what I draw, he gives up. And I'm like, no, dude, that's good. The more you do it, the better you're going to be at it.
Right.
So, I don't know. I just think, like, everything is a pursued interest. Like, I couldn't play a guitar
Kids are
until
so
I
hard
picked it
to
up and played it.
convince, though. Like, my niece, who's 10, He's drawing now, and it's ironically enough, she has a very sketchy style, kind of like you. You know, she has this very fast-paced sketchiness to it.
Well, a lot of mine is just laziness and not refining anything. I just like to.
Sure. Well, you want to just get the idea down.
Yeah.
You know, but there's some times where you use it to your advantage to create stuff, and you know how to shade using that sketchy style of. I was always so controlled that I would do cross-hatching because I wanted particular amounts of shade in certain areas, and I knew that I could use this technique to, like, okay, this is a lighter area and this is a darker area. And I was like it was all about control for drawing for me. But anyway, my niece, I'm like trying to explain things to her, and she's such a fucking hardhead that she's like, nah, I know. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Where does she get that from?
I know, seriously, man. But it's fucking, I don't know, man. Life is so interesting, dude. You know.
So I got a question for both you guys, right? So
sure.
We coming from a technical background, we deal with drawings a lot, like, and there is a whole generation of guys, mostly older, that we have had some interaction with, but probably not a lot, that did hand drafting for stuff. Now, have you ever seen like a honest to God drafting print from the 1930s or 40s?
Like something like an architect would have done?
Yeah, like an architect's drawing.
I've never seen
like
it
a technical
close,
drawing
but...
for a crane or something.
So I
like
actually learned how to do that in middle school.
Yeah.
They actually taught us how to use graph paper and to scale and use scaling rulers and I still like if I wanted to get something done on this house, I would make my own drawings.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't call somebody with AutoCAD to draw it. I would just be like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, you'd sit down and do it. So that stuff is immensely artistic, right? And it is beautiful in its own way. Like if you could get a print of that and frame it, you put it on the wall and it would be art, right?
Sure.
But I'm sure the guys that are doing that don't think of it as art.
Right.
No.
You know, for them, they're very technical, they're very methodical, and that seems kind of, Chris, like that's kind of where your head exists, right? You're a little bit more technical, a little bit more methodical. You have that creative drive, right? So you can do something from your imagination, or you can take something you see on the table and then embellish it in an artistic way. But John, it seems to me like you're a little different. Like your approach to art is a little different, maybe not quite so technical as Chris might be. How do you find that niche for yourself, like when you're doing and learning this kind of stuff?
I think like I have like a certain set of rigid rules that like I have to adhere to.
Yeah.
Like he was saying, like John knows how to draw anatomy and stuff. Anatomy is very important to me.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to draw a person, it has to look like a person. It has to look like, but everything else that goes into it can be whatever I want it to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like there has to be the side of it that is total nonsense, but there has to be a certain amount of structure to it.
Yeah.
So that's the interesting thing about drawing something fantastic, or I have a lot of stuff over there that's I had a lot of heavy influence from comic books, or also it was the 90s was dark. I drew a lot of demons and skulls and
the 90s
weird,
was kind of like that dark,
you know,
thing.
like weird demony shit, you know, and so, but like he said, to me, proportion was always very important, and therefore, when you drew something, if it was fantastic and exaggerated, because people don't realize that it actually is subconsciously a lot of math involved and measuring. Like when John would draw a figure that looks like this.
Yeah.
There's a perspective.
Foreground perspective.
Yeah.
And
this hand's going to be smaller. This hand's going to be larger.
Yeah.
In the, in the
so the people that
perspective
can't hear, is basically I stuck one hand all the way forward so that Ben could see it, and then the other one all the way in the back. And what you're creating is a foreground, middle ground, and background.
Right.
But when you draw this as an artist, you have to know that it's going to get smaller, and how do you illustrate that without making it look exaggerated or ridiculous, or just it looks incorrect. Because sometimes I do look at other people's artwork, and that's the first thing I judge.
Yeah.
Is your proportioning.
I judge things like hands.
Yeah.
If you can't draw fucking hands, I got no time to look at this.
Really?
Yeah, I'm weird about it. I feel like that's something you need to know how to do.
Yeah, no, I can't draw hands for shit.
Really?
You would hate my artwork.
I mean, if you're a portrait artist, then you draw faces, and that's what you specialize in.
I do do
That's
that.
great. But if you're somebody who is drawing figures and characters, you need to know how to draw this. You need to be able to draw hands.
That's his heavy comic book influence.
But it's
comic
all
books,
it's all comic book. Like that.
There are guys that specialize.
See, like
in
I can't
hands.
draw a technical drawing, like you're talking about. I can't draw a car. Like I can't draw a symmetrical car.
Yeah.
I can draw people. I can draw from life. I can draw a face.
Yeah.
But I can't draw a fucking car
like
to save my life.
Static, rigid, mechanical thing is
Can't
tough for you?
Yeah, it's really tough.
Oh, wow.
But you're not heavy on math, are you? Or no? See, I am.
I'm not a math guy.
Yeah.
And to me, I would just grid it out. Like I would literally create a grid and measurements and scaling, and I would know that like, okay, this is how far apart the wheelbase is, and then I would start, and then you can add your own dimensions to it and maybe make it not as perfect because that's what a drawing is supposed to be. It's not really supposed to be perfect, which is funny.
I can fake a car. I can half-ass draw the car and then put values on it to make it look like that's a car.
Yeah.
So let me give a scenario here. So I want a really hot pinup girl.
I could do that.
Leaning on an old hot rod.
Can't do it.
I could do the car. He could do the woman.
You do the car. I'll do the chick.
Oh, that's awesome though. All right, collaborative work, commission. Let's see.
Yeah. All right, listen. I actually like this idea.
Yeah. You could do it. You do it and put it up on Instagram.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. I haven't drawn in so freaking long that I probably need inspiration like this. I need somebody to say, you know what the sad truth is?
You can do a giant canvas collaboration and then auction it off to your viewers.
So listen, I haven't.
There's like 12 people there.
Well, yeah. We do not have a huge fan base. I'll tell you this: I have an idea for a piece of performative art that I've been thinking about, and I'm almost like half tempted. I know it doesn't matter because we don't have no listeners, but
it's like the same.
But this is a thought that I thought about. So like, people nowadays are doing these like performance art things. And I had this idea about doing a rage room, like me being the performer, and taking a classic 1970s-ish Corvette and going fucking apeshit on this car with a music track laid over top of it and cameras on all surrounds to basically witness me destroying this fucking car.
Oh. He just wants an excuse to listen to Limp Bizkit.
No. Actually, I have a particular song in mind, and you'd be surprised. It's a guitar track. It's a Spanish guitars, and the song
the
is
brother and sister.
Yeah,
they're great.
Rojo Diablo or Diablo Rojo, which is it's a very fast-paced song, and it's basically about the Red Devil, and it's like. But my whole thing behind this is you're taking this American iconic car and you're fucking destroying it, and I think in some ways it's kind of symbolic as to like the people of this country, what we're doing to it, you know, like so it is a bit of a political statement, but I think also that this would be a way for me to illustrate my passion and anger and violence, you know, so like it's something I've been thinking about. It would be a very expensive piece of artwork that may or may not, you know, I buy a car for $15,000 and destroy this fucking thing, and then like maybe it just goes to the junkyard after that, and nobody wants to purchase it.
To
you know,
piss on the Liberty Bell or something like that.
Well, I think
John, I thought you were a fucking artist, man. I thought you'd be on board with this. You know,
performance art.
I thought you'd want to see me destroy a Corvette, but I also think there's something.
One of them comes with federal prison time, and the other doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I also think
really?
that there's. I think that there's this, like even the statement of me being so passionate about automobiles and cars. Wouldn't there be the irony of me destroying one? Wouldn't that also be a part of like the statement of like. You created this thing, and I would create it, I would polish it, I would paint it, I would make it beautiful, make it look gorgeous.
Right. And then
it
all up.
Within 8 minutes, I think the song is destroy this fucking car.
I think people would have to see the entire
process
from start to finish.
Yeah.
And begin to know you.
Yeah.
Because it's just destroying the car without context.
Well, you would have
people
to have
don't
some
get
kind
that.
of explanation in the beginning. Maybe
That's not enough.
No?
They need to be able to know you and know how much that car would mean to you.
Yeah.
Not just as a car guy.
Yeah.
But as an American.
Yeah.
As like there'd have to be deep context. Because otherwise it's just some a-hole fucking up a beautiful car.
Well, so it wouldn't be just like video content. It would kind of be, I think that there would have to be I mean, it would be video content, but I think that also it would make this, you would have to make a statement to explain, what this piece means. And I think that that's really what it's getting to, is nowadays people want to hear, like, what's the story behind it. So that being said, there's a piece of artwork that really fucking, I'm like stuck on. I'm like fascinated with. It was a piece of artwork that was created by these two artists from China. Mm-hmm. And oddly enough, it's a robot inside of this glass box that is leaking hydraulic fluid, and its only purpose is to...
I've seen that, to scoop it up.
Yeah. And like, I'm so fascinated with this concept, and I've heard other people's, like, they're projecting their thoughts on, like, this thing is knows that it has to get the hydraulic fluid back to itself, to the sump pump, which keeps it alive and keeps it going.
It's a metaphorical piece of mechanical art.
And so like when I saw the video and I'm watching it, and like some people are commenting that it's like the saddest fucking robot they've ever seen, and they say that over years of the thing being in working progress, that it's slowing down and it doesn't move as fast as it used to, and its components are starting to break down. And you like think about the metaphor of humanity, of like what we are, and you're like, I get it, man. I get it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not exactly what the artist implied with it, but that's the way a lot of people, in myself, and including myself, is when I look at that and I think, like, is that what I'm doing? I'm working myself to fucking death, and I keep promising myself, like, when I retire someday, I'm going to travel around the country.
Yeah.
But maybe you won't make it. Maybe you won't make it to retirement,
I don't think about ever retiring. I don't.
Are you enjoying yourself right now?
Enjoying myself?
Yeah. So, like, I think I've been annoying maybe my employer or my coworkers because I take days off and I go camping and I do whatever the fuck I want. And I'm not trying to start shit or like say anything, but I'm just saying, like, in the last few years, I've been trying to be more mindful of, like, am I enjoying myself? Am I enjoying my time with my kids? Am I doing what I want to do? When I went to Portugal, it was a bit of a paradigm shift, and it was me tapping back in and remembering how much I loved traveling and seeing new things and meeting new people and exploring. Like, I love my cars, but my cars are kind of a trap. They keep me stuck in my fucking garage and not seeing the world, Yeah. And the camper is like a way for us to get around and see my dad, at one point, it echoes in my head. My dad says, well, how come you don't fucking see this country? And I'm like, I don't know. I would.
I don't really have a whole lot of, like, desire to travel or anything like that. But at the same time, I think, like,
I'm not trying to encourage you to travel. I'm just trying to encourage you to enjoy your life.
I think that just comes with the decision to be like, all right, so I work my ass off all the time for this money to, pay for the things I need to pay for. But, the money that's left over, what am I spending it on? So, like, I think if you're spending the money on experience...
Coke and hookers.
But I mean, like...
That's an experience.
But I'm saying, like, as far as, like, you're saying, like, you invested in your camper so that you could do the thing that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So, like, to a certain extent, you're paying for the experience.
Sure.
You're saying that the cars are kind of a trap, and I could see that because I've been a collector who's spent too much money on shit that I didn't need.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think, like, I'd say to a certain extent, I enjoy my downtime. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, it doesn't, maybe for you it's not traveling, but maybe it's more artwork.
Mine's more art,
music,
like learning how to play guitar and stuff like that. Like, that's what I enjoy.
So I met a guy at a religious event, right? He's a really weird dude. His passion was Civil War reenactment. And him and his dad and his brothers they're like the guys that go bare feet and camp in the woods for like 6 weeks.
Nice.
They eat cornbread and a little bit of like a tablespoon of molasses, and like that's their meal for the day because they're living
the experience.
Yeah, and you know his dad kept horses, and you know they were extras and like one of those goofy like Gods and Generals, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
Not a great Civil War movie. You can fight me on that, guys. But but he was a really fascinating guy, really strange dude, really out there. But I asked him, I was like, wow, do you do that like full time? Is that your job? Do you hire yourself out as extras? Like, oh no, we did that all volunteer. And he says, I work to do the things I love.
Yeah.
I don't work. Work doesn't define me.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people in this world who are so tied up in what they do as a definition of their personality, and that I think is toxic.
No,
unless you really love what you do. Like
I do love what I do to the extent that I think of the people I work with as like family.
Yeah. And
I like working for them, and I like doing the job.
Yeah.
But I feel very well compensated for what I do.
That's awesome.
So
that's great.
But I'm not defined by what I do, like to the extent that, like it isn't like a huge part of my identity.
So I think you've achieved a pretty good balance.
Yeah, you know, as far as work goes.
Yeah, where you realize that this is something that I don't hate, right? I don't get up every morning. Like there's some days, right? Everybody has those days.
I'm not nerdy about it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not like interested in like, you know, I don't like keep up on what the fuel surcharge is for trucks right now or anything like that, or like, you know, think about the industry in my downtime. I don't.
There you go.
You know,
so
but I do look at it as a vehicle for me to make money. It's something I have experience in. I've talked to him before about, you know, possibly investing in getting my own vehicle and becoming like an owner operator to some extent, or hiring somebody to be, but I don't think it defines me.
Yeah.
You know.
So that gives you the financial flexibility to engage in the things that you do love, that feed your soul, that make you a better person, that put you in that happy place, right?
Yeah.
And Chris, maybe stop me if I'm wrong. I feel like your job doesn't do that. You don't have that balance yet.
Well, I'm pretty passionate about what I do, but it's also like I am a dork about cranes, you know? Like I do enjoy cranes and seeing different ones and more modern ones and how they're building them and how they're creating them. And I don't know, I guess if I like if I were ever to move on or anything, I would be really interested in being a part of like designing different ones and like re-engineering them, which is I think that I'm one of these people, sincerely, that is, they say that your right brain is the artistic side, I believe, if I'm correct.
I don't know.
And your left side is more logical. And that's motor functions and
crosses, like left hand, right hand has something to do with that.
I think that's how I remembered it.
Yeah.
And that's why I could be wrong. Maybe it's the opposite, you know? But they say that the hemispheres of your brain, one side is logical, the other side is artistic. And I do sincerely believe that I'm the kind of person that uses both sides. Mm-hmm. And they don't, there are a lot of people out there that use one or the other, you know, largely. Not, it doesn't mean that half their brain is turned to fuck off. It just means...
No, but they favor one to the other,
Yeah, and so that being said, like, I like creating things, but there has to be mathematical...
there has to be a practical application for it, do you think?
Well, no, not that, but it has to make sense, you know? Yeah. Even if it's a fantastic... Like, if I'm drawing a demon with big fucking horns and, you know, spikes and shit sticking off of its head, it has to...
Be logical to some extent?
Yeah, when I look at the image, it has to make sense physically. You can't just have a bone sticking out of its fucking neck, and it's like, well...
Where did that bone come from?
Yeah, it wouldn't be able to support such a thing, so that makes no sense to me, but...
Well, here's a question I have for you. You know how, like, they say, like, if you love doing something, and it becomes your job...
Yeah.
You stop loving it.
Yeah, do you feel like you've applied the things that you love to your profession to a certain extent that...
The crane world, no.
But I'm saying as far as mechanics go,
so
things like that...
Lately, I've been doing a little bit of side work and a little bit of welding and a little bit of fabrication. And I've been like tickling the idea of trying to get more serious about it. And I just keep thinking like,
if I do, then I have to rely on it.
Maybe I'll fucking hate it. Maybe it'll
like, I don't know what you do for a living, but I don't think you'd want to like paint miniatures 8 hours a day. Right?
No. So I know guys that work showcase actually, right? And their hobby has become their job. And
they're miserable.
They're distinctly less happy than I think they would be if they did something else and then could play games as a side thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there's some people that, like artists, right? In order to be a successful commercial artist, you have to have a high level of discipline and structure, and you have to be able to churn out product to a deadline, which does have a toxic effect on that kind of just bonkers creativity.
I couldn't draw comics for a living. I couldn't do it.
I know a guy that inked for comics for a living.
I could ink, but I don't want to do it 8 hours a day.
Somehow. Yeah, somehow he was able to put that, compartmentalize that.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, you will hate bringing that expression side of yourself into your professional
I've drawn
life.
Spider-Man 1,000 times in my life. I've never once drawn Peter Parker. I can't imagine drawing from one panel to another panel, Peter Parker eating a bowl of fucking cereal or something like that, talking to Aunt May, and then then you get to draw the action scene. Like, I just think that there would be this tediousness to it. As much as I love the craft of it, I don't want to do that as my job.
Well, I think comics is different because I think you would have to enjoy the storytelling, you know? And that's really, you're a visual storyteller. That's what a comic is, you know? So, like, in my mind, that would be more, that's why it's a team of artists.
But I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't want to be a part of it.
Some guys sketch out the panels and they know, okay, this is how we're going to tell this story. And then the next guy comes in and inks, and the next guy comes in and applies the color.
And then another guy lays the lettering down. I get that.
And they do that. That way you don't get fucking caught up in each little tiny panel.
I would hate it.
But that's also because I think as an artist, as a free artist that just draws, you and I are used to creating an image from start to finish.
Yeah.
And even in the world of I grew up in body shops. To see a car wrecked, so front end damage, destroyed, and then rolls out of the shop in a month from now, and it's a brand new fucking car again, I think we all need goals, and we need to see that we accomplish something.
Yeah.
So, all right, disregard the body shop thing, but think about me and you. Me and you met in the shipyard.
Yeah.
I started on ship 19 in the pipe shop, and I was working down in Flat Bottom, where it was plates of steel, and then they were literally erecting the flat bottoms of the ship, and I honestly followed that ship all the way through all the shops, all the way out to the dock, and then went on the team that took it out on sea trials. Ship 19 was pretty substantial for me because I followed all of the steel all the way to delivery.
To when it became a boat, to when it became a boat in operation.
And so, like, Ship 19 is very significant to me, you know, and you know, but when you look at all of the different jobs along the way, and I didn't do all those jobs. There was other people that were there, you know, building the double bottoms and building other parts of it and installing the motor and installing all the generators and all the piping and everything and painting it and fucking commissioning it and all this stuff. You and I are the guys that build the entire boat by ourselves. We're not a team of guys. And I think that that's what makes it different. And maybe that's how they keep these guys motivated and keeping it a job for them, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I think that it's, you know, you got to find a way to compartmentalize and detach, you know?
I think I'd be good in like the world of like creating concept art or something like that, or like character design. But beyond that, I wouldn't want to be like married to anything for any long term.
I mean, isn't there guys that do like specialty like covers? Like sometimes
so I could be a cover artist maybe. That I could probably deal with.
Yeah.
But I ain't drawing 30 pages of
Yeah.
Peter Parker.
Yeah, Peter
eating
Parker.
a bowl of cereal talking to Aunt May.
No, thank you.
So we're about to wrap this up, and let's just take this off the deep end here. But Ben, I think what we should do is die-cast little miniature dildos and just start a whole dildo war, like maybe big
dildo war.
Yeah, and I want you to paint. I want you to paint the balls and like the little pubes on the balls and like.
Oh, I'll do little hairy ones.
I was good this whole fucking episode, John. Don't eyeball me, John.
No,
all right?
No, he wasn't. But he tried. He tried really hard.
Dildo war.
Dude, let's do a dildo
There's been some
war.
crazy stuff on the tabletop. I haven't seen dildo war yet,
I
but
think
there's room for that.
Yeah. There's
room
always
for that.
room for a dildo war, all right?
Big veiny triumphant motherfucker, right? Wasn't that from Superbad?
Dude, I so badly want to make like weird shit like this, and I bet you it would sell.
It would
I
sell.
bet you it would
Somebody
sell.
would buy dildo wars.
So somebody would actually.
We could call it dildo wars.
So really, there's some strange stuff. There's some strange stuff. And there's strange stuff that people have done kind of like as a side project on their own. Like I said, I've never seen anything as out there as dildo wars, but there may be a market for that. You could put a giant vagina at one end of the table, and it's like a death race to get to it.
Oh,
you could even do like sperm
war
and egg.
of the sexes.
You do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
War of
You
the
could get
sexes.
really
You
gritty
can have
with
the
it.
titty monsters and the fucking, like all kinds of, and it's just a monster that has titties all over it. You know?
Somebody
like
got
big
there
old
ahead
like
of you, man.
amoeba type looking characters that are like sexually transmitted diseases.
There
and
you
shit.
go.
Yeah.
You know, all kinds of
I
shit.
am the clap.
Yeah.
Dirty motherfucker. So honestly, there's some. So you were talking about like '90s demon stuff.
Yeah.
There is a heavy thread of really, frankly, disturbing stuff.
Really?
Yeah, it's very like Cthulhu doesn't even like that whole mythos, just really bizarre shit doesn't even begin to cover it, man. I'm talking about like really, you look at it and you're like, that's just disturbing.
Like a Joe Coleman painting or something.
It's just really like weird proportions. I have to show you some of this.
So that's kind of fun because that was some of the stuff that I did enjoy drawing because sometimes. So as much control as I liked in my artwork, it sometimes is fun to have odd proportions because your eye is like, oh, why is one arm longer than the other? Or like that was the Dali. Like looking at Dali art was like, dude, that makes no fucking sense. And that's why it's fun.
Surreal.
Yeah.
That's
surreal.
why it's great to look at.
Yeah,
you know?
there's stuff in the miniatures game space, and it's not just that. There's RPG art, like role-playing games, and all kinds of. There's artists that exist or create just for this kind of subset. Of really dark, really demonic, depressing, surreal. Like they're going for that almost shock value of that's just wrong, and you guys not just did a piece of art, you did a 3-dimensional representation of that piece of art, and both of them are just seriously disturbing.
I kind of want to see
for
this
most
now.
folks.
I want to see this now.
I'll have to see if I can find some of it. I think the game, it's a board game. I think it's called Kingdom Death. I don't know exactly. I might be wrong.
I'll Google
There's
it.
too much. But yeah, dude, there's some of the stuff you're like, whoa. And the idea is that you're like just this regular dude, and you stumble into this universe or fall into this demonic realm where stuff is just wrong.
Yeah.
and like there's like all of the cool like H.R. Geiger, just really weird,
I like
edgy stuff
Yeah.
exists in that miniature space or in that kind of tabletop space, and it's out there, man.
That's pretty
it's
cool.
out there, and there's artists that are doing incredible work, and it's fun, but also like really like nightmare vision stuff.
Yeah.
So if you,
But
you
that's
like
creative. That's creative.
Oh,
that's you know.
that, and the
I
talent
actually
level
like
is
that.
insane.
Yeah.
I
the
like that stuff.
creativity.
That would pique my interest quite a bit.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
part of the reason like we get into nerd stuff is because it feeds that like, wow, this is really awesome.
Yeah.
There's games that are basically like a horror movie on the tabletop.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the slasher with whatever mask he's got on, and you're the poor little college girls trying to get away from him. Like there's
a miniskirt. In a
That's
miniskirt.
cool.
Oh yeah,
That's what I would
hiding
prefer.
behind the wall of chainsaws, like that kind of stuff.
I like that. I mean, I enjoy that kind of stuff, man. I mean, whether it's even like, you know, any kind of like thing where you can like kind of design your own world.
Yeah.
It really, like, I always got fascinated by like George Lucas and his creation of Star Wars and all the small little models. Like, I like the craft of it so much more than I like the end product of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well,
like,
because the end product is fleeting, but the craft is
the craft
there.
is like,
You're
right. You're like, man, look at that. Like the AT-AT was a model. You know what I mean? Like all that kind of shit. You know?
It's like What a Workshop and all Lord of the Rings stuff. Have you ever watched any of the behind the scenes stuff?
That's the only stuff I care about. Like I would rather watch the behind the scenes stuff than watch the actual movie
because you appreciate the artistic, the craft,
like
the skill level.
The guy, I think his name's Tippett. The
Phil Tippett.
I love Phil Tippett.
Yeah.
I will watch a documentary about Phil Tippett any day.
Yeah.
Rather than watch any of the movies that he created things for, because I just want to see what he does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you know, like I think he did Ed 209, which I'm like a RoboCop maniac, a maniac for that movie. So like to see like the stop motion animation of that, it's just like, man, this is like all I give a shit about.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
All right. I had fun.
You had fun?
I had a lot of
Ben,
fun.
did you have fun?
No, I'm not coming back.
Ben, man.
That's so
no,
funny.
lies.
No, I like this guy.
Yeah, I had a great time.
All right.
This guy's all right.
Do you want to hear some cool music?
I'm surprised that you're friends with this guy.
I don't know how to react
like
to
he
that.
said in the beginning, it's really a matter of desperation.
Yeah.
Like he says he didn't have a lot of friends, and I was like, well, coincidentally, I like you, so I'm just going to keep you as a friend, whether you like it or not.
That's great. I'm glad you have the grit and determination to stick to that.
You ever seen Shrek and like the original Shrek? I'm like Donkey, dude. I'm just not going to leave you the fuck alone. You're the ogre in the woods, and I'm just like, nah, fuck that, man. I'm just going to keep poking my head through the window at
I
you.
love it, and thank you so much.
I'm Donkey, man. I'm Eddie Murphy the donkey.
Of the people you could be in Shrek, that's probably the best, except for the gingerbread man.
I love the fucking giant monster gingerbread man. Gingerbread man. I fucking
What is
love...
this, Shrek?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, I love Shrek. Shrek the movies.
I never watched it.
Oh, it's great. There's
It's
so
very
much
clever.
hidden funny shit in there that's like pokes fun at like modern society and like weird stuff. Not the gumball buttons.
Yeah.
He's like the one guy's talking about pulling his fucking his buttons off his little shirt. Not the gumdrop buttons.
Yeah. It's one of those movies that the guys that made it, the people that made it, they know that adults are going to have to sit there through this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like watching Animaniacs back in the
Yep,
day,
yep.
or some of the like the Bugs Bunny cartoons. There's a adult level that's way above what kids will get.
Sure.
And then there's the kid level that's entertaining and fun for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the only modern show that is pretty close to that is Bluey. You know, like I watch Bluey with my kids, and it's good. It's like a non-offensive, nothing crazy. Like there's nothing crazy on there. But dude, every now and then they'll say some shit, and it's just like. So at one point, the mom tells the little puppies, the little baby, kids or whatever. She goes, well, that's Uncle blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we know he voted for the other guy, but that's okay because we still love him. And I was just like, what the fuck, dude? Like,
there's been times when I've had to walk out of the room when my daughters had Bluey on because I got choked up.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. They're like, there's some heavy parent-child.
Oh
moments in
yeah,
there.
man.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
dude. Yeah. But there's also some other like I don't know. I just think they really approach modern stuff really well. So like, it's kind of silly. Like, but dude, the way I like it caught my attention is I'm half-ass playing on my phone. My kids are watching it, and all of a sudden, the little kids are playing with another set of little kids, and the one kid says, "Yeah, my daddy doesn't live at home no more." And I was like, "What the fuck did I just hear?"
I remember
Like,
you saying that.
What the fuck what just happened? Why did you say that? I don't understand. And then I was like paying attention, and I'm like, "Oh, well, this ain't bad. They're just saying like hey man, this is what happens. Like they're not like making a political statement out of this.
People's lives are complicated. And shit happens.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So I think it's a really good show for small children. I'm very, very particular about like what are you watching, Yeah. So anyway, we gotta wrap it up, boys.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of our longer episodes.
I think anytime we have a guest, we kill it. But I don't think our fucking 5 listeners are gonna get mad at us. I think we did good on this one, man.
All right.
Music.
Sure. Thanks for listening to Renaissance Man-Child. Renaissance Man-Child is a Yardbird Tuna production. If you enjoyed the show, please like, follow, and share. Any ideas or suggestions, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram.
Oh, shit!
You talk good.